The Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and online at WGNSradio.com.
What is up? We're the one show giving you the truth about personal finance. This is Financial Coaching Radio, and I'm your host, Jason Qualls, certified financial planner, one of the only independent, commission-free financial advisors in Rutherford County. For all about me, check out the website, jasonquallscfp.com. That's JASONQUALLSCFP.com. If you want to be a part of the show, questions, comments, even your disagreements, hit me up on social media at financialcoachingradio.com. Right there in the top right corner, Facebook, all that stuff. You can send a quick little or email, and we'll respond as quick as we possibly can. A lot of talk has been going on in the investing world regarding the tariff stuff. And everything is political these days, right? They take, and it's not because it truly is political, it's because it's what gets y'all riled up. You know, whether you're right or left, Trump or anti-Trump, you know, you can rile someone, or the masses rile them up with an article, a radio ad, or a TV ad, or a TV segment, or a news, whatever. You can really piss some people off in today's climate if you talk about politics in a certain way. But one thing that's got put on the back burner as an argument. And I wonder, he's a CFP. I wonder what his agenda is here. I'm not going to research it. It's a Forbes magazine article. Is passive investing creating a bubble? What is passive investing? Passive investing is buying index funds. You're buying funds that aren't trying to beat the market. That's actively managed funds. You're buying funds that are trying to follow the market. And we'll keep it really, really simple. You know, there is hundreds, if not thousands, of market indexes out there, or indices, if you want to use the correct grammar. The most well-known are the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ. But when people talk about the market, they're typically talking about the S&P 500. But if you have an international index fund, it is following a whole different index than the U.S. market. If you have an S&P 500 index fund, you can guess what it's following. It's following the ups and downs of the S&P 500 index. If you have a Dow Jones index fund, not as popular, but if you own one, then your mutual fund, your index fund, is following the ups and downs of the Dow Jones average. The one you see on TV, the one that they always talk about. The Dow is down 10% today. The S&P is up 200 points today. I told people before on this show, don't look at the point change anymore. The market's gotten so huge. The points are not really as relevant as the percentage change. Look at the percentage change. 0.5%, 1%, those are typical days on Wall Street. Now, you get into 3, 4, 5% or more moves in a day, those aren't typical. One of the most popular investing strategies is distorting the stock market. That is the question. Is it distorting the stock market? As index funds attract trillions. Let's talk about why they're attracting trillions. It's because a lot of people have figured out that these investment firms, these mutual fund companies, these banks, these financial salespeople, advisor hack jobs, recommending these actively managed funds that lose to their benchmark index 80 to 90% of the time are not as successful. They're more expensive than index funds, so people have been putting money for well over a decade just flocking to index funds. The core argument for this is that buying index funds is creating a market bubble. is that too much money is chasing too few stocks. Passive investing through index funds and exchange-traded funds has become so dominant that it funnels an enormous volume of investor capital into a shrinking pool of mega-cap names such as Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Amazon, Meta, all that stuff, would sit at the top of major index fund holdings because they're at the top of the major indices. If you look under the hood of the S&P 500, you're going to see Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. I believe they're in the Dow. Not looking it up is totally irrelevant to our conversation. Maybe in other indices too, but that's not really the point because these funds. Here's the thing: if anyone's looking at this, and we'll see if it kind of goes into this on the article if we don't run out of time. Is I know these funds are quite large, and I'm not looking at Vanguard's S&P 500 index fund, for example. There's a ton of money that's held in that fund, but is that more money that's trading by institutional investors? Now we can have a different argument and say, well, if institutional investors are buying these index funds, which to my knowledge, I think they are these days. That's why you see a lot of market swings faster and a lot of market recoveries faster these days because they're in and out. They can move the market with a single trade of buying an entire or selling an entire index, and you could not do that. So you couldn't do it 20, 30, 40 years ago, certainly. Maybe 20 years ago. The critics say this dynamic way may warp prices, inflate a bubble that can burst if inflows reverse. People typically, again, that got to get on the institutional track here. I don't think the average everyday investor owns enough to kind of move an index, right? So it's one of these theories. Is that overstated? Passive investing began to take traction in 1976 when Vanguard founder launched the first index fund. It's gotten just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. The evidence suggests that market concentration risks are manageable. So there's our answer. Passive investing does come with its own set of risk, as does any strategy. But data and market history indicate abundant competition from active investors, which doesn't support the idea that current trends are inflating a bubble. This is clearly sustained interest. There is clearly a sustained interest in active investing. For what reason, I don't know. But there is. So there's our answer according to this Forbes article. And it's hard to imagine. I'm getting on this knock the active people. The only people outside of hedge funds and those idiots that run hedge funds and charge their clients 2-3% or whatever, the only people for regular folks like you or I that like actively managed funds are usually the people who get paid in some way to sell them or recommend them. Ponder that. Wonder why that is. Most fee-only people, most fee-only independent CFPs don't touch active funds for the most part. Wonder why that is. Conflict of interest, maybe? All right, this is Financial Coaching Radio. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. We'll be joined by John Baker, estate planning attorney. Keep it locked in right here on this. Next.
Recent reports show that half of Americans don't have any of the most basic estate planning documents, like a will or powers of attorney. Folks, if you're married or have children, you can't put this off any longer. Call John Baker, estate planning attorney, right now at 896-5621. As a husband, wife, mother, or father, you owe it to your loved ones to make sure your estate plan is in order. So call John Baker at 896-5621 or go to bakercounsel.com.
Would you like your business to be more efficient? Well-organized financial records are the foundation of any successful business. Taking advantage over your competition today by calling Tutherow, Helen Welch, CPAs at 848-1072. They can provide you with expert bookkeeping, payroll services, tax planning, and much, much more. Go to thwcpa.com or call them at 848-1072 today. Get a second opinion. Get a second opinion. Get a second opinion. I'm Jason Qualls, commission-free certified financial planner. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to get a second opinion on your investments and financial plan. Unfortunately, since most financial advisors care more about selling you financial products than providing objective advice, it can be hard for you to know who has your best interest in mind. Call me, Jason Qualls, a commission-free certified financial planner, for a free no-obligation investment review at 878-2134 or go to my website, jasonquallscfp.com.
Of your infancy, well, would you pass me the bit between heaven and hell? There's an easier route, the hypotenusa.
Welcome back to the show. This is Financial Coaching Radio, and I'm your host, Jason Qualls, certified financial planner. Joining in once again is estate planning attorney John Baker, bakercounsel.com. John, welcome back.
Hey, Jason, always great to be here.
Big news I guess not long ago, was the Taylor Swift-Kelsey engagement. And now everybody's talking about the prenup situation. So we'll lean on you for the legal advice, even though it's probably... How many times have you ever done a prenup for clients? Is that something that you come across?
I may have done one years ago. I don't do them. I usually refer them to lawyers.
You're more estate planning, asset protection, that kind of thing.
There's some estate planning lawyers that do prenuptials. I don't. I can handle so many things, and I figured I'd leave that to others to do. But that might become the most famous prenup in the history of prenups. I don't know.
Has there been any big stories recently of a prenup? Because you hear about divorces and celebrities a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't really hear too much about, obviously big payoffs, like Jeff Bezos paid his wife an ungodly amount of money.
Right.
But I think he was married to her before he became a multi-billionaire.
They were, right. She claim some? She may have been a tech person too. I was trying to remember exactly what her role was, but it seemed like, if that's the one I'm thinking of, that she had a role in some of that, not just indirectly. I think. But.
And then Bill and Melinda Gates is another one. I think they
Right.
were married before.
Right.
He founded, maybe not when he founded Microsoft. I'm not going to look it up, but he didn't have the wealth that he has today.
Right.
Those are the two biggest divorces, I think, that have been in the public eye. But
Right.
I don't hear a whole lot, other than just the payouts of what a spouse gets at divorce. I don't hear about prenups that often.
No, you don't. Of course, in a high net worth situation like those, you would expect there to be prenups. There just has to be,
So
It's too complicated not to.
You hear estimates of people's net worth, and you got to take a little bit with a grain of salt, because it's not like they have that much cash. It's like brand name and things like that. Estimated her net worth is, Taylor Swift, that is, $1.6 billion. Kelsey's net worth is $90 million.
Yeah, he's impoverished compared to her.
And that $90 million, you're one of the few in the world with that net worth, but $1.6 billion to $90 million.
It's just
That is amazing.
It's hard to comprehend those numbers, really.
How would you set that up? You basically just come in, whatever you leave, you leave with this what you came in with.
Well, at its core,
Or is he going to ask for spousal support if they get divorced because he's a washed up NFL player?
Exactly, got expensive health care bills. I don't know.
What if they have children?
Well, at their core, each party has to have their own attorney, own legal advice.
Are people aware of that? I think I've seen.
No.
The two things I've seen, I don't know if I've seen a prenup. I've seen a postnuptial agreement.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
And it was just basically someone had pulled it off the internet and they signed it. I'm thinking, man, I don't know.
Well, let me tell you, this is a war story from many years ago, but I was an attorney in some litigation one time where the husband had died. This was like an elderly couple, second marriage type thing. They had a prenup done by one attorney, signed by both of them.
And what's wrong with that?
And
Was it worse than like a divorce situation, right?
yeah, well, you got to full. It's about getting independent advice is what the law requires essentially. And in that particular case, the husband died first, and the widow then sought to throw out the prenup. And I would
Because
say,
they wanted more money than what the prenup allowed, right?
right, and because there was
And why is that allowed? You sign any other legal document, it's legit.
it's just the unique law applicable to that, where there is the courts are in most cases, if not all, are going to require independent legal advice. And in this particular case, I mean, the prenup largely did not work because there was not independent legal advice. And the other element is there has to be full disclosure of each other's assets. And so, so I would think even at its core, even with, high net worth people like Taylor Swift, you still have to comply with those basic requirements. Of course, with their type of assets, that's complicated, I suppose. But, I don't know how detailed the disclosure would have to be in a case like that. I mean, they're both wealthy.
Well, there's
So,
no way he would go after Taylor Swift's assets in a public court battle because all the Swifties would come down
Oh
and
yeah, they
crush
well,
him.
yeah. They're probably going to be. Oh, This will be the assuming they go through with it, the most public wedding I think somebody said since Princess Diana
Oh, God. I don't see why.
and Charles. So,
I don't see why at all. But anyway.
it's just a thing. I'm a
What about, Mr. Financial
I'm a different
Peace?
generation. So
Mr. Financial Peace says couples should combine all their assets. What do you think he would say in this scenario? Should they share bank accounts?
I think he would take 50-50.
Like that's an extreme example of how just one size fits all financial advice is. There's just no one. I don't even think they would be like, oh yeah, we got to combine everything. We're married. I'm gonna take my 1.6 billion or whatever it was, and your 90 million. Well, let's just put it all in one pile.
If it wasn't explicit, I'm sure it was implicit in their relation from the get go, just by their situations. I mean, it would just be. It would just to me
the
have to
children
be.
having children is what's going to complicate things.
Now I tell you where it might be a bigger problem. Let's say that Travis Kelce was a small town lawyer in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and he wasn't worth $90 million. He might have been worth $1 million, and she was worth $1 billion. It might be a little different situation there too. But there's been famous split ups. Paul McCartney's had some, and I think even with some premarital agreements, he's paid out. Whatever. What is 8? In the
Kelsey's not gonna be
hundreds
the
of
one
millions.
paying
so-
in this example. It's going to be
No,
Taylor.
exactly. But I'm sure it'll all get worked
Johnny
out.
Carson, didn't he lose a significant part of his wealth in divorce?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Of course, if you don't have with their generation, I think a prenup would be really not all that controversial to do. But in the
Well,
older,
I think it depends on. I think if the man has significantly more wealth than the woman, I think it's going to be. I think there's a stereotype. I think there's a double standard here.
yeah, and the older generations probably were reluctant to do this, even worth a lot of money.
Do you think, from just your circle of legal people you run in, and when you refer this type of business, which probably isn't often, is it really frowned upon? Because I look at it like. You don't want to treat a marriage like a business, but in fact, it is a legal contract with another person.
Yeah, and
if you don't want to involve a legal contract with another, then don't get married. Don't legally. You can have a ceremony and say some vows, but you don't have to actually file a document with the state.
Right. But let's say that I think the most common scenario we actually see prenuptials outside the high net worth families is. Second marriage, they've got their own children and that sort of thing, and so they want to keep their stuff separate, in large part. And
Later in life,
right? Second marriage is later in life. They've got their own children. They've got their own 401ks, their own assets. they might tend to want to keep those separate, and that's probably a fairly common scenario where they would be more likely to get a prenup.
Yeah, it used to be the adage, right? If you don't love the person more than money, then you shouldn't get married.
Well, I tell you, I had a case one time. It was one of these second marriage situations, and the husband wanted a prenup, and the potential wife said she wouldn't sign one, and he married her anyway. And I said, well, that was the problem, right? When she said no, that should have been a clue. But
I can see both sides, but I think if you have to look at it for what it is. And what's the harm from someone looking at, because there's a lot of bad stereotypes around marriage in 2025. A huge percentage of marriages end in divorce. Huge percentage of marriages they're not even happy. They're just they're staying together for children or financial matters or whatever. So, a small percentage is ultimately happy, and you could lose a significant part of your net worth going through a divorce. Is that the culture's changed in that way? I think. Is there really any incentive to get married legally? Is it okay to have a ceremony, say some vows, but not do the legal binding thing with the local government or state government?
I do think I hear that more today than in years past because of, like you're saying, all the various legal complications, related to, when you get married. So,
yeah, it's culture's definitely changed. I see it from both sides. I see the side of, yes, we're not going to go in this thinking about it ending in divorce. But you got to be practical and go, well, hey, what if it does? Might as well plan the worst case scenario out now so we're not fighting about it later. But just get on the legal side one more time. If you're going to look into prenuptial agreements, the thing to do is you got to each have your own attorney. That's the key thing, right?
That and full disclosure of assets are probably the two main things.
Can't be hiding stuff.
No, you can't be hiding things. That's right.
All right, if you need legal help of any reason in regards to estate planning, that would be wills, trust, powers of attorney, asset protection. John is your man, BakerCounsel.com. This is Financial Coaching Radio. We're back right after this.
Do you have a financial plan? I'm not talking about a worthless binder full of pretty charts and graphs. Are you certain you're on track to reach all your financial goals? A comprehensive financial plan is about so much more than just your IRA and mutual funds. It involves risk management, tax planning, professional investment management, retirement, and estate planning. Make sure your entire financial life is in order by calling me, Jason Qualls, a commission-free certified financial planner at 878-2134, or go to my website, jasonquallscfp.com.
Did you know that the U.S. tax code has over 70,000 pages? This is precisely why you must have a tax expert on your team. The folks at TH&W CPAs have been providing their expertise to individuals and businesses in Middle Tennessee for over 50 years. And now they have an office right here in Murfreesboro. Call Kevin Sizemore today with TH&W CPAs at 848-1072. That's 848-1072 or online at thwcpa.com.
Financial Coaching Radio is back. This is WGNS. I'm your host, Jason Qualls, certified financial planner, one of the only independent commission-free financial advisors in Rutherford County. For all about me, check out jasonquallscfp.com. Still in the house is John Baker, estate planning attorney. John, let me pose a question to you about someone who owns real estate in different states, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, wherever, the whole short-term rental Airbnb thing has gotten really popular in the last 5 to 10 years. So that causes people to own property in other states, vacation homes. moving from one state to the next and keeping the prior home as a rental, all those things. How does having property in two different states complicate someone's estate plan?
Well, probably the most basic thing is that each state law will govern the disposition, let's say at death, of the property of the real estate located in that state. So in Tennessee law applies. In Florida law applies, and typically it requires a probate or some sort of administration in both states to transfer that property. Therefore, it's not unusual for people with property in multiple states to put it in trusts so that they will avoid all that, and the trust can handle it without, court or probate type processes.
Yeah, I'm not on the front lines like an estate planning attorney going through probate. I'm kind of high level. Here's what people need to do, but that's kind of in theory and practice, and just from training. I've always been thought that the best way with someone who's having property in two different states is they basically have to get a trust, so they're not probated.
Yeah, I think that's the most common recommendation.
I'm trying to imagine what being an executor or being a surviving spouse, and having property in certainly more than two states. How much of a headache that would be? Because I guess you have to be present, or you have to hire legal representation in those other states if you're not going to be present. How does that work?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the law in each of those states. Right? Do you have to appear in person? Is it a formal probate? Do they have a more streamlined process? It's just going to vary from state to state.
And that just puts added pressure and anxiety on someone having to dispose of someone's estate, especially a surviving spouse or child.
And in some states, going through those processes is not inexpensive too. So,
who's the most? Do you know the most expensive probates? It's got to be California or New York.
I don't. I really don't.
Tennessee's always had a pretty good reputation for probate.
Right, we're more of a, where typically the rates are going to be something akin to an hourly rate, which I think in a lot of these states keeps the cost down. In Florida, the attorneys have statutory approved percentages of estates, which can make the probate fee quite high. And I don't know I can't recall. I've seen it, but I can't recall here what those percentages are. But let's say the attorney fee's 5% of
the total estate
of $50,000. That's a pretty big fee for what might be. I mean,
is there a cap on it?
I don't know if there is or not, but it's a scaled kind of thing. But they have approved percentage attorney fees, and therefore you'll find.
So it's not something you negotiate personally. It's just a set schedule.
Well, I don't know that the attorneys have to follow the schedule, but if they do, those fees are
can't go higher than that.
Those fees are presumed reasonable. Well, you might be able to in certain situations if you have a contract with the client.
I'm thinking, cost is one thing. And I think you should be aware of probate costs if you're not going to. If you're doing your estate plan, if you're going to do a will versus a trust, you need to be aware of what the cost of probate is going to be on the end if you're exposed to probate. But the 2-state or 3-state or 4-state thing, owning property in multiple states, that just sounds like a nightmare. I don't care what the cost is.
Right, yeah.
And a proper trust and placing that property, all the property in a trust, would avoid that. Is there any way a properly laid out trust for real estate property in multiple states would not accomplish that?
Well, let's say just use Florida again, for example. You have to be careful in Florida, and maybe other states too, but I know of Florida, if the property in Florida is your what I guess they call your homestead, there is a very broad homestead asset protection in Florida, and if you the property has to be dealt with different if it is your residence property versus what most of us tend to see. Like if it's a rental or just your beach house, that's one thing.
So a trust may not help that situation.
They have another way they do it that I understand it is effective, but I don't know exactly what that is. But so that which just highlights though, if you have property in that state, you shouldn't only be coordinating that with your Tennessee attorney, but you got to make sure you got the Florida attorney to make sure you don't mess something up.
That's a great point. So do you need multiple attorneys in each state? You need one attorney for each state you're in?
So if I'm setting up a trust with Florida property, I'm not licensed in Florida, so I'm not a Florida attorney. We have to hire a Florida attorney to prepare the deed. And he'll make sure it's done correctly, under their law, so we don't mess anything up. But I think that's better than hiring the Florida lawyer to do a probate. So,
Right. So you got to coordinate an attorney in each state. You have
a deed might be a few $100s. A probate might be a few thousands of dollars.
or more.
Yeah, so.
John Baker, estate planning attorney, operating right here in Middle Tennessee. BakerCounsel.com. BakerCounsel.com. 615. What's it? Is it 896-5621? Is it still the number, John?
Or 4154, our new number.
I got a new phone number, so say that for us, John.
So I'm over at the law firm Evans Bullock Parker, recently moved, and 615-896-4154, but either number works, old or new. So.
All right, John, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Great, always great to be here.
This is Financial Coaching Radio. Hang in there. We'll be back right after this.
How much are your investments costing you each year? Most people don't have a clue. Why is this extremely important? Because overpaying by just 1% a year in fees and expenses can reduce your account balance at retirement by 28%. You heard me right. 28% less at retirement. I'm commission-free, certified financial planner Jason Qualls. I don't sell financial products. I don't accept commissions or kickbacks from investment companies. Give me a call today for a free unbiased investment review at 878-2134 or visit my website, jasonquallscfp.com. Buying a house is stressful, and so is shopping for a mortgage. Take my advice and get a second opinion on the mortgage for your new home or your refinance. Not all banks and mortgage companies are created equal. Trust me on this. Call my friend Marshall Sparkman with Franklin Synergy Bank at 615-439-0885. Great team, great process, and the best rates. Marshall Sparkman with Franklin Synergy Bank at 615-439-0885.
Welcome back to Financial Coaching Radio. Always with you online at financialcoachingradio.com. Also, the links are there for Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. You can listen any way you please in this technology day. Thankful to WGNS for that technology, but also online. Just click on the show's archive, financialcoachingradio.com. If you've enjoyed the show, you want to learn more about what we're talking about and the little snippets that we discuss, getting a second opinion. There's no one-size-fits-all baby steps. Unless you're at the basic level of where you're trying to get out of debt, but if you've built some assets and you're trying to build more assets, you're not drowning in debt, one-size-fits-all, cookie-cutter baby steps just ain't going to get it done. Well, I shouldn't say it's not going to get it done. It's not going to get it done for the most part in the most effective way, because financial advice, a little bit like medical advice, it's kind of personal. And that's why cookie cutter stuff doesn't work. Go to jasonquallscfp.com. That's JASONQUALLS. If you missed the show, podcast will be available soon. I think John and I did a great segment, John Baker, estate planning attorney, on prenuptial agreements. You want to go back if you missed any part of that and catch it, because if that's something that's on your mind for yourself, second marriage or first marriage, or your children, we got some good snippets of information there. I'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same channel. Keep it locked in for local talk right here on WGNS.